Research and development is a phrase unheard of in the early part of the 20th century, but it has since become a universal watchword in industrialized nations. The concept of research is as old as science. The concept of the intimate relationship between research and subsequent development, however, was not generally recognized until the 1950s. Research and development is the beginning of most systems of industrial production. The innovations that result in new products and new processes usually have their roots in research and have followed a path from laboratory idea through pilot or prototype production and manufacturing startup to full-scale production and market introduction. The Tertiary Education Trust Fund spotted a gap which was creating a roadblock in Nigeria's evolution into the industrialized nation it desired to be, and firmly decided that intervention into research for development would be a key step in turning our future around. TETFund's Executive Secretary, Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro, explains how this would work.
For far too long, there has been a palpable and worrisome disconnect between the academia and industry, such that research in our tertiary institution has become merely a tool to climb the academic ladder. For industry, it was more convenient to shop for innovations and the results of research findings in other climes outside the shores of Africa. This unpatriotic and unproductive orientation offends one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which identifies traditional and indigenous people at the center of development. It must be acknowledged that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has taken many significant initiatives in providing a framework for the development of science and technology by mainstreaming it into our national development strategies. That is the way to go, because the level of investment by governments in the innovative research and development as well as education determines the global competitiveness of their economies. Let me therefore express my deep appreciation to the President of the Federal Republic because of his leadership foresightness, as exemplified in the new development plan of his administration. On September 10, 2020, at the inauguration of the National Steering Committee to oversee the development of the Nigeria Agenda 2050 and medium-term National Development Plan, which succeeds Vision 2020 and the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan 2017 to 2020, Mr. President stated that the main objective of the new plan of federal government led by him are to lift 100 million Nigerians from poverty to the next 10 years, in the next 10 years, following World Bank's projection that Nigeria will become the third most populous country in the world by 2050, with over 400 million people. According to him, the Chinese development plans, which he said had brought no fewer than 700 million people out of poverty in the last 40 years, is a good example for us to copy. He added that China's development agenda only suffered a setback in the first quarter of this year as a result of COVID-19 outbreak. He added, COVID-19 pandemic, which has created economic crisis for both Nigeria and the entire world, also has its inherent opportunities, which he said presented the country with a platform to think and chart the path of progress. With 26 working groups and a national steering committee, the core driver of the new agenda going forward is quality education that will facilitate the achievement of the set deliverables within the time frame. At the core of global evolution of educational advancement, especially content component of educational packages, is R&D. No nation in the world has attained greatness without sound and qualitative education, with R&D playing the central developmental pivotal for sustainable development. Impact of COVID-19 pandemic on world economy manifested in Nigeria with devastating effects of slowing economic activities, Severity of COVID-19 impact on Nigerian economy recorded overall growth contraction in GDP growth rate of -6 to 10% by the second quarter of this year. During this period, only the agriculture sector recorded positive growth rate at 1.58% in real terms, while the industries and services posted massive contraction of -12.05% and -6.78% growth rate respectively. For too long, there has been a palpable and worrisome disconnect between the academia and industry. Such that research and tertiary institutions were merely a means to climbing to academic ladder, and mostly for promotions, sadly, rather than problem solving for the good of our nation. For the industry, well, like I've always said, indeed, it has been said that the academic community in Nigeria has erroneously been clapping with one hand. You could not hear the audibility of a clapping that is with one hand. For the industry, it was more convenient to shop for innovation and the results of research findings inclined outside the shores of Nigeria, since the academia had developed thick walls and created artificial valleys that prevent the industry to leverage research outputs in our tertiary institutions, coupled with the mutual distrust between the academia and industry. These factors have negated the principles of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, which identifies traditional and indigenous people at the center of development. It must be acknowledged, however, that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has taken many significant initiatives in providing a framework for the development of science and tech by mainstreaming it into our national development strategies. This can be viewed with the lens of 50% increment in the National Research Fund, of TETFund, in the year 2020 approved budget.
The foundation of any innovation is an invention. Indeed, an innovation might be defined as the application of an invention to a significant market need. Invention comes from research, careful, focused, and sustained inquiry. Research can be either basic or applied, a distinction that was established in the first half of the 20th century. Professor Olufemi Bamiro is the former Vice Chancellor of the University of Ibadan and currently serving as the chairman of TETFund's National Research Fund. He paints a picture of how the paradigm shift that places premium on R&D is a game changer for Nigeria.
It's a game changer in the sense that if you look at the entire environment we have now, up to now there has not been any serious funding mechanism to support R&D in the country. Years ago, yes, we used to have funding, even at the level of the university. We used to have Senate research grant that you could use for research. But somewhere down the line, everything dried up to the extent that we were only relying on foreign agencies to fund our research. And of course, there's no foreign agency that will fund our research that's for your national development. It won't be something that will be of interest to them. So which means that for a long time, we have not been addressing our developmental issue that should be subject to research. Take, for example, SDGs, even MDGs. One of the reasons we didn't do too well under Millennium Development Goals had to do that research input into addressing those development goals. Not available anywhere. In other words, the participation of what we can call our knowledge workers, universities, and so on, in implementing the goals. Nothing to write home about. And now we have SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Again, you look at all those goals, they all have implications for research and so on. Who is addressing them? So this is where TETFund is really game changer, because it is at this point now when we really, moving towards having a foundation that we can now talk seriously, that we are now ready to address our developmental, issues. But one thing that people must appreciate, it is, TETFund has already even started doing this through the NRF, National Research Fund. Right now in the country, TETFund NRF is the only source of serious research grants in the system in Nigeria now. As ES mentioned, when we started NRF, this was in 2009, we were given 3 billion. But we did not start, giving out any kind of grants until 2013, because we spent quite some time to come up with what we can call national research agenda. What is our research agenda for the country? TETFund must be commended for this. And so when you look at that NRF brief, National Research Fund brief, in there you will see where it has been articulated, all the areas that research should take place in order to move our national economy. So TETFund has already started something. It's now that we are now moving. It's like you are now upscaling it.
Research and development, abbreviated to R&D in industry, are two intimately related processes through which new products emerge. Why does TETFund focus on research for development?
Research is not enough. You will be, people say, oh, okay, you have a number of research results in our university system. They have not been commercialized because there is no financial input for commercialization and so on. And I believe that where this will change, this is a game changer, is that all those research results that will make a difference through this R&D, they can be identified and then implemented to make, the change. So people must be able to, appreciate it. And then what is also good is that when we started NRF in 2013, giving grants, and so on, we had only less than 200 in our entire system applying for grants because they were not interested. But as time, went on, right now, by the time, the one we are doing now, the one we are processing now, 2020, we had to now go, because when we did the 2019, we received almost 3,000 proposals, full proposal, and we could only fund 128. So it was then decided, it's not easy to write a proposal so that people don't get discouraged. We said, no, we will not be asking them for full proposal. Let us now be asking them to just fill up us a concept note, which is just 3 pages. Tell us what sort of research you want to carry out. Do you know that when we computerize this online, as I'm talking now, we closed about, this was about 2 months ago that we closed the portal. We received nothing less than 5,800 concept notes from the Nigerian system. Unbelievable. In other words, there is now response from universities, polytechnics, colleges of education, because they are seeing seriousness in what TETFund is doing.
This explains TETFund's efforts, which saw President Muhammadu Buhari significantly increase investment for research in Nigeria.
Our research community, they are waking up. And they'll be very happy to hear about this R&D that TETFund is doing now. It can only make people now feel that, now the country is coming back. There's now seriousness that people can now do, research and be confident that first of all, it will be funded, and that not only that, if they have results, there will be funding to be able to take results to the market.
Applied research carries the findings of basic research to a point where they can be exploited to meet a specific need, while the development stage of research and development includes the steps necessary to bring a new or modified product or process into production. In Europe, the United States, and Japan, the unified concept of research and development has been an integral part of economic planning, both by government and by private industry. Nigeria has had a long journey in its efforts to join the league of these industrialized nations. But the NRF chairman sheds light on some of the challenges.
For you to industrialize, you have to take special knowledge of the inputs required in all these things, and if they're not there, forget it. There's no way you're going to be able to industrialize. Then another thing is, the cost of inputs. Somebody wants to produce something, he has the technology, but he cannot take power for granted. The cost of producing power, to be able to drive this process. And one thing we have to appreciate in this country, we have to be competitive. There's no way now you can close your border and say that, no, I want to protect my local production. No, there's not people will smuggle things in. So the bottom line is, look at why is it that your products are not competitive? And it is all these inputs, power input, road, and all this infrastructural input that will make your business people to be able to come up with products that will compete in the market. It's not only the local market. We are lucky that we have a big market in Nigeria, but we must also capture, global market. But can you compete out there? And you must compete. And you can only compete through bringing in your R&D, bringing in your cost of input, making sure. That's why you hear people saying, we must reduce cost of doing business in Nigeria and things like that. No. There's no doubt. It's not negotiable. We must be ready to compete if we are to really industrialize.
In September 2015, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development that includes 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Building on the principles of leaving no one behind, the new agenda emphasizes a holistic approach to achieving sustainable development for all. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals to transform the world include no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequality, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace and justice, strong institutions, and partnerships to achieve the goals. TETFund's National Research Fund is strategically targeting the achievement of these goals.
The areas, what we have done, like I said before, we look at the entire, for example, for this 2020, in asking for people to send in proposal, we said, look, let us look at SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. What are the challenges we have in there to be able to do better than we did in MDGs? So we took it every aspect of the SDGs to now say in order to be able to achieve something meaningful, what would be the research input? So we took there are 17 goals. We took each one of them, and then we divided we have about 28 thematic areas for research under NRF, 28 thematic areas. So we now started teasing them out and then writing out what are the challenges. And those are the things that we now advertise in calling for proposal. And that was one I was telling you that the response was massive. Really massive. That is, people now were ready to start doing research to address all those, issues that we have identified.
No doubt things are looking up as TETFund continues to lay the foundation for a radical shift to build intellectual content and translating it into economic produce and products. Professor Bamiro lays out the potential for TETFund's Standing Committee on R&D and the NRF.
Well, what I'm looking is more or less what I just look at this R&D as we are, deliberating that people will really buy into it, that government will really support it. We identify the possible sources of funding because they will need funding. And then, of course, that we have a kind of, let's say an organizational structure that will be very, very, responsive, not bureaucratic. Really professional, so to manage, the funds. And I'm sure, Nigerians, we have the capacity. It's just for you to really marshal, the existing capacity. And if you are talking about this, it's not only even Nigerian researchers here in here, the diaspora also. We know where they are. We know ourselves. There are people who will gladly come to participate in, really driving this. So what I want to see in the future is that we are serious and we are, leveraging not only on the local research manpower, but even the manpower diaspora out there. China has done it. China, use a lot of their diaspora. South Korea use a lot of diaspora to develop their economy. And Nigeria even has probably more people out there. And the way to do it is this type of mechanism we are now. So I want to see this go in the future to be able to bring in all the research manpower, both local and those in diaspora.
An old Nigerian proverb says a good weekend is foreseen from the preparations in the middle of the week. If you practice or learn something new today, you will benefit from it tomorrow. TETFund is applying new solutions to tertiary education challenges of the past to create a greater economic future for generations to come. And that is the paradigm shift.